Steven Seagal had traveled through dozens of airports in his life, but this time felt different. He wasn't on a movie set, or on a mission, or surrounded by cameras. He was just another exhausted passenger wandering through a crowded terminal, trying to find a quiet corner to rest during an unexpected overnight layover. He chose a spot near a long row of chairs, put down his small travel bag, and leaned back with a deep sigh. Despite his fame, most people pretended not to notice him. He appreciated that. Tonight he wasn't an action star, he was simply tired. But what Steven didn't know was that someone was watching him. Not a fan. Not a paparazzi. A woman sitting 2 seats away, wearing a grey hoodie and typing on her phone as if she were just another traveler. She glanced at him occasionally, her eyes sharp and calculating. Her name was Agent Reeve, an undercover FBI operative assigned to monitor suspicious activity at the airport after a security alert earlier that evening. She was told a man fitting Steven's general description might be involved in a money laundering handoff. Of course, the FBI had no idea it was actually the Steven Seagal. Steven sensed something was off. Years of discipline had sharpened his instincts. Even half asleep, he could feel the woman's attention lingering too long, her body language too tense. When he opened one eye slightly, he saw her pretending to scroll, but her screen wasn't moving. She wasn't texting. She was observing. He shifted in his seat, pretending to adjust his jacket, while quietly assessing her. Her posture was military. Her eyes scanned the crowd with precision. Soft hands but strong forearms, a fighter, or at least someone trained. Whoever she wasn't a random traveler. Still, Steven said nothing. He leaned back and closed his eyes again, letting her think he hadn't noticed a thing. Minutes passed. The airport speakers announced a delayed flight. People groaned, children cried, luggage wheels rattled across the floor. But the strange woman never stopped watching him. Steven smiled faintly. He knew she was tracking him. He just didn't know why. And she didn't know. She was watching the wrong man. Agent Reeve had been trained to read micro-expressions, to notice the blink of an eye, the twitch of a hand, the tightening of a jaw. But nothing about Steven Seagal matched the psychological profile she had been briefed on. He was calm, too calm. Suspiciously calm. The kind of calm she normally saw in covert operatives or ex-military ghosts who disappeared after missions. But the strangest part, the part she couldn't comprehend, was the familiarity. She knew his face. She knew his walk. His presence. Yet her brain refused to accept the possibility that this man, this broad-shouldered, black-jacketed traveler half asleep on an airport bench, was the very same Steven Seagal whose films her father used to watch on late-night TV back home in Pakistan. Reeve had grown up in a modest neighborhood where watching action movies was a family ritual. Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, no matter which city you came from, Seagal movies were a classic. Her father would imitate the moves, laugh, and say, "Beta, no one fights like this man." And here she was, tailing him. Still, she couldn't break cover. Protocol was protocol. She typed a quick message to her handler. Target observed. Possible match. Continuing surveillance. Before she could hit send, Steven shifted again, this time turning his head directly toward her. His eyes opened fully. No more pretending. No more subtle glances. For the first time, their gazes locked. Reeve froze. Steven spoke first, his voice low but steady. "You're not very good at pretending to scroll." Her heart pounded. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," he said calmly. "Either you're watching me, or you're the slowest texter on earth." She hadn't prepared for confrontation this early. Her training kicked in. "Sir, I don't know what you're talking about." Steven raised an eyebrow. "Sure you don't?" He sat up straighter. The air around him shifted, stronger, heavier, more present. Suddenly the man who looked like a tired traveler now radiated the unmistakable alertness of someone fully aware, fully awake, and fully dangerous. Reeve's hand slowly moved toward her badge hidden inside her jacket, but she hesitated. Revealing herself too soon could compromise the operation if he wasn't the target. Steven watched her hesitation with amusement. "If you're worried about making a scene," he said softly, "don't. I'm not your guy." "And what makes you think that?" "Because whoever you're looking for, is nervous, jumpy, trying to blend in. And I," he said with a faint smirk, "don't blend anywhere." He wasn't wrong. Even tired and dressed like any other traveler, he carried an energy that made him stand out. A presence you couldn't ignore even if you wanted to. Reeve stared at him, torn between duty and logic. "You know," Steven added, "if you're going to watch someone, at least do it from an angle where they can't see you." Are you giving me surveillance advice? She asked sharply. Only because you clearly need it. She almost smiled, but caught herself. Before she could respond, an announcement echoed through the terminal. Security alert. All passengers remain seated. Do not leave the gate area. A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. People checked their phones. Some stood up nervously. Reeves' phone vibrated. She glanced. Suspect may be moving toward your location. Her eyes widened. The suspect wasn't Steven Seagal. He wasn't the target. He was just an unfortunate coincidence. Or worse, he was now unintentionally in the middle of a federal operation. Reeves stood up quickly. Sir, I need you to stay where you are. Steven stood too. Not happening. Sir. If there's trouble coming this way, he said, adjusting his jacket, I'm not sitting like a duck. Reeve clenched her jaw. She didn't have time to argue. She checked the crowd. A man in a baseball cap pushing a large duffel bag was moving toward the boarding gates faster than normal. Her instinct screamed, that's him. She tapped her earpiece. I have visual. Moving to intercept. Before she could make a step, Steven placed a hand lightly on her arm. You're going alone? It's my job. It's a stupid job if it gets you killed. Reeve pulled away. Stay out of this. She started walking fast, hand near her concealed weapon, eyes locked on the suspect. Steven watched her go. For 5 whole seconds, he considered staying out of it. But that wasn't who he was. With a silent sigh, he followed. The suspect reached the corner of the terminal. Reeve closed in behind him, steps quiet but urgent. Sir. Stop right there. The man turned, eyes wide, startled, but instead of surrendering, he bolted. Reeve sprinted after him. And Steven? He didn't run. He moved. Effortless. Controlled. A calm storm. The suspect pushed through a crowd. Reeve yelled, Federal agent. Move. Steven cut through an alternate aisle, predicting the man's path with uncanny precision. At the end of the terminal, the suspect looked back, saw Reeve, and turned sharply. Straight into Steven Seagal. The man bounced off him like he had hit a wall. Steven grabbed the duffel bag with one hand, twisted the suspect's wrist with the other, and pinned him to the floor without breaking a sweat. Reeve arrived seconds later, breathless. You took him down? She gasped. Steven shrugged. You're welcome. She stared at him, half stunned, half annoyed, fully relieved. Who are you? She whispered. Steven smiled. Just a tired traveler. Agent Reeve had been in the field long enough to know that adrenaline lied. It made people look bigger, stronger, more heroic than they really were. But even as her breathing slowed and the airport returned to its normal hum, the scene replayed in her mind. The suspect slamming into Steven like he was a concrete wall. The effortless takedown. The calm in his eyes, as if danger was a language he spoke fluently. She knelt to cuff the suspect, her hands surprisingly unsteady. Steven stepped back just enough to give her space but stayed close, too close, like he was quietly making sure nothing else went wrong. Federal agent, the suspect muttered, grimacing. You people never learn. You have the right to remain silent, Reeve said firmly. Steven raised an eyebrow. This one doesn't look very silent. The suspect glared at both of them. You think you caught me? You have no idea what's coming. Reeve tightened her grip on him. You'll have plenty of time to explain that downtown. Not to me, the suspect sneered. To your bosses. Steven leaned down slightly. Let me guess. They won't believe her. The suspect smirked but refused to answer. Airport security arrived in a rush, confused but grateful. Reeve flashed her badge, took control of the transfer, and handed the man over. But the adrenaline hadn't faded, not from her, not from Steven. Something electric remained between them, unspoken but undeniable. Reeve hated that she even noticed it. She turned to Steven. You shouldn't have interfered. Good thing I did, he replied. That's not the point. Then what is the point? That you put yourself in danger. Steven crossed his arms. Danger and I are old friends. She exhaled sharply. You don't understand. If something had gone wrong, it would have been on my record. You're a civilian. A helpful one, he reminded her. A tiny, involuntary smile tugged at her lips. She quickly hid it. Before she could speak, her earpiece crackled. Agent Reeve, return to command post immediately. Debrief required. And bring the civilian involved. She winced. Steven smirked. Guess they want to thank me. No, she said flatly. They want to interrogate you. Story of my life, he said with a shrug. Inside the airport security room, Reeve led them into a stark room filled with monitors and tense agents. Her supervisor, Agent Morris, a stern man with a permanent scowl carved into his face, stormed toward them. Reeve, why wasn't I informed you had visual on the suspect earlier? I didn't confirm the ID until the last minute. And this, civilian? Morris asked, looking Stephen up and down like he was a misplaced suitcase. He assisted in the takedown, Reeve said reluctantly. Morris narrowed his eyes. Assisted? Or interfered? Stephen answered calmly. She would have caught him. I just made it quicker. Morris didn't like that answer. Name? He demanded. Stephen paused. His eyes flicked toward Reeve as if deciding something. Stephen, he said simply. Full name. A beat passed. Then another. Reeve suddenly understood, he didn't want attention. Not the spotlight. Not the recognition. Not the drama that came with fame. She stepped forward. Sir, he's not involved in the case. He acted in good faith. We shouldn't waste time questioning him. Morris looked annoyed. Reeve, step outside with me. She followed him out of the room. Morris didn't bother lowering his voice. Do you know who that man is? She thought of telling the truth. That she suspected. That she recognized him. But she didn't. No. That's Steven Seagal, Morris whispered urgently. What he's doing traveling alone, I don't know. But we cannot afford a media incident. Handle him carefully. Her heart skipped. Now she had to protect him, not as a target, not as a civilian, but as a potential PR disaster for the agency. When she returned, Stephen was sitting back casually, arms folded, watching the agents shuffle around like they were children playing spy. All right, Morris said stiffly, you're free to go. But we'd like you to stay in the airport until paperwork is completed. For security reasons. Paperwork. Stephen repeated blandly. It won't take long, Reeve added, trying to soften the situation. Stephen looked at her, not the supervisor. Fine. For you, not for him. She felt warmth rise to her cheeks, a reaction she definitely did not want Morris to notice. Waiting in the empty lounge. Reeve escorted Stephen to a quiet airport lounge reserved for staff and special passengers. The space was dim, quiet, and blessedly empty. Once the door closed, Stephen spoke first. So, you knew who I was from the start? No, she admitted. I wasn't sure. But I suspected. And you didn't say anything? It wasn't relevant to the mission. He gave her a slow, appraising look. You're good at this. The job, I mean. Thank you, she said softly. He leaned back, studying her. You risked a lot running after that guy alone. That's my job, she repeated. But it's more than that, he said quietly. You don't hesitate. You don't back down. That's rare. Her breath caught slightly. Steven Seagal, the Steven Seagal, was complimenting her? I don't know what to say, she murmured. You don't have to say anything, he replied. But you should rest. Rest? She frowned. I'm working. You're exhausted. Anyone can see it. Her walls cracked. For the first time all day, she felt seen. Not as a federal agent. Not as a badge number. But as a person. She sat next to him, the silence strangely comfortable. You saved my life out there, Reeve said quietly. I think you would have saved your own. Maybe, she whispered. But it was nice, not being alone in it. Stephen looked at her for a long moment. Something unspoken passed between them, an understanding, a spark, an emotional shift neither of them expected. Reeve, he said softly, you weren't alone. And for the first time in a very long time, she believed it. The quiet lounge felt different now, warmer, calmer, yet charged with something neither Stephen nor Agent Reeve wanted to acknowledge. But that rare moment of stillness didn't last long. Reeve's phone buzzed sharply. She glanced at the screen. Her face drained of color. Stephen noticed immediately. What is it? She hesitated before answering. The suspect you helped subdue is part of a network. They just intercepted a message. Someone inside the airport is targeting a man carrying a classified envelope. Stephen blinked. Inside the airport? Reeve nodded slowly. And the envelope, he asked, contains intel meant for the Department of Justice. She swallowed. If it gets into the wrong hands, it won't just expose agents. It could compromise ongoing operations. Stephen leaned forward. So what's the problem? The message says the courier, the person returning the envelope, is a woman. Reeve lifted her eyes. A woman traveling alone. Stephen felt a shift. And you think you know who she is? Reeve nodded. She's here. In this terminal. Before Stephen could respond, the lounge door swung open. Agent Morris barged in, panic etched across his usually stone-hard expression. Reeve, we have a situation, he said abruptly. The courier just passed through gate 14. Multiple suspicious individuals are trailing her. Reeve shot up from her seat. Stephen followed without hesitation. Morris snapped, he stays here. Reeve turned. Sir, with respect, we need all the eyes we can get. He's already proven he can handle himself. Morris hesitated, then grudgingly nodded. Fine. But he listens to you, not me. Understood. Stephen smirked. Don't worry. She gives better orders. Reeve ignored the flush rising to her cheeks. We move. Now. The search begins. The three rushed down the quiet staff hallway and emerged into the bustling terminal. People hurried to flights, children cried, announcements echoed overhead, but beneath the normal noise, Reeve could feel the tension. Courier description? Stephen asked, scanning the crowd. Mid-30s, brown hair, red jacket, carrying a white envelope with a DOJ stamp. Simple enough. Reeve tapped her earpiece. This is Agent Reeve. Visual sweep beginning. We need all units watching Gate 14 sector. Potential tail on the courier. Static crackled back. Copy. Units moving. Stephen walked beside her, eyes sharp, posture calm but ready. Reeve noticed something. He didn't look tense. He looked focused, like this wasn't new to him. Stephen, she said quietly, you don't have to stay involved now. He didn't look at her. You said earlier you weren't alone. He finally met her eyes. I meant it. Before she could respond, she spotted her. Red jacket. Brown hair. White DOJ envelope. Walking alone. And just behind her, two men moved in sync, pretending not to watch her, but their patterns gave them away, lingering too long, angling their approach, keeping a steady but unnatural pace. There, Reeve whispered. Target acquired. 2 tails. Stephen nodded. And a third one at 5 o'clock. She turned slightly. He was right, a third man with a cap pulled low was cutting through the crowd, heading toward the woman's blind spot. Okay, Reeve breathed. We intercept discreetly. No, Stephen said. They're too close. You'll spook them. They'll grab her or the envelope. So what's the plan? She asked. Stephen's lips twitched. You're going to hate it. Before she could object, he walked straight toward the courier. The intercept. Stephen approached the woman casually, as if he were just another traveler. Then he did something unexpected, he gently tapped her shoulder. The woman flinched. Yes? Stephen lowered his voice. Don't turn around. Don't panic. 3 men are following you. Her eyes widened with fear. I'm with someone who can help, he said softly. An FBI agent. But they're closing in. We need to move. Why are they after me? She whispered. That envelope you're carrying. Her grip tightened. Reeve approached slowly, flashing her badge. I'm Agent Reeve. We need to escort you to a secure location right now. The woman nodded shakily. But the moment Reeve reached her, one of the men sped up. Then another. The third one reached into his jacket. Reeve's voice sharpened. Move. Stephen grabbed the courier's arm and guided her behind him as Reeve stepped forward, blocking the men's path. FBI, she shouted. The nearest man lunged. Stephen didn't think, he reacted. A sharp elbow. A twist. The man hit the floor. The second man tried to circle behind Reeve. Stephen cut him off, catching his wrist mid-swing and sending him crashing against a pillar. The third man bolted. Reeve chased him, sprinting through the terminal. Stephen wanted to follow, but he stayed with the courier, his instinct told him to protect her first. Morris and 2 agents tackled the runner moments later, bringing him down hard. Within seconds, all 3 suspects were in custody. The courier trembled, clutching the envelope. I didn't know. They told me to drop this off at a DOJ office. I thought I was doing a good deed. Reeve placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You did. You were just caught in the middle of something bigger. Stephen stepped closer. You're safe now. The woman nodded, eyes glossy with relief. As Morris took her away for official transport, Reeve turned to Stephen. "You could have been hurt," she said softly. "Not today," he replied. She exhaled, relief, and something deeper, passing through her. "You keep doing this," she whispered. "Showing up exactly when I need backup." He smiled faintly. "Maybe that's not an accident." Their eyes met, longer than before, deeper than before. Something had changed between them. And neither of them was running from it anymore. The terminal slowly returned to normal, but the atmosphere around Stephen and Agent Reeve didn't. Something was different now, an underlying charge, a shared rhythm, like two people who had crossed a line together and couldn't step back. Reeve led Stephen into a secured conference room while Morris and the other agents transported the suspects. The courier had already been taken to a protected holding area. As soon as the door closed, Reeve let out a long breath and dropped into a chair. Stephen stood across from her, watching quietly. "You okay?" "I should be asking you that," she replied. He gave a soft chuckle. "I'm fine. You're the one doing all the running." She shot him a look, half annoyed, half amused, but said nothing. Finally, she leaned forward. "Stephen, that was reckless. Brave, but reckless." "You would have done the same," he said. "That's different. I'm trained for this. You're..." He raised a brow. "I'm what?" Reeve paused, then sighed. "Impossible." Stephen smiled. "I've been called worse." She opened her mouth to retort, but Morris burst through the door, holding the white envelope the courier had been carrying. "Reeve," he said, voice tight. "We have a problem." Stephen noticed the way Morris avoided looking at him. His presence was clearly making the supervisor nervous. Reeve stood. "What's wrong?" Morris placed the envelope on the table. "It's fake." Reeve's stomach dropped. "What do you mean fake?" "I mean," Morris said, pulling out a pair of gloves and carefully opening it, "this envelope is empty. Not a single document inside." Reeve felt heat rise in her chest. "So the courier was used as a decoy?" "Exactly. Someone wanted us distracted here while the real target walked right through the airport." Stephen crossed his arms. "Or while something else happened." Morris finally looked at him. "And you think you know what that is?" Stephen shrugged casually. "You should consider the possibility." Reeve stepped between them. "Let's stay focused. If the envelope was fake, then what were the men after? Why chase the courier?" Morris grimaced. "Interrogation of the suspects hasn't begun yet. But my guess? They didn't know it was fake either." Reeve froze. Stephen noticed. "What are you thinking?" She slowly lifted her eyes. "It means someone higher up, someone smarter, fed false intel to the network." Stephen nodded. "To make them move." "And we walked right into it," she whispered. "The bigger twist." Morris lowered his voice. "There's more." Right before the suspects were taken away, one of them said something. Stephen's gaze sharpened. "What?" He said, "You're focusing on the wrong envelope." Silence filled the room. Reeve stepped closer to Morris. "What envelope? Where is it?" Morris shook his head. "We don't know. The logs show no other courier, no flagged items, no reported transfers." Stephen's voice was quiet but firm. "It could have been transferred hours ago. Or minutes. You're trying to catch up to a ghost." Reeve pressed her hand to her forehead. "We need airport security footage. All gates, all terminals, last 6 hours." "Already requested," Morris said. Reeve turned to Stephen. "You don't have to be part of this. It's becoming dangerous." Stephen tilted his head. "That's the second time you've said that." "Because it's true." He stepped closer, his voice low and honest. "Reeve, I'm in this. Whether you want me to be or not." Her breath hitched, not from fear, but from something deeper she didn't know how to process. Before she could respond, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then stabilized. Morris stiffened. What was that? Reeve frowned. Power disruption? In this sector? Stephen didn't move. Not a disruption. A test. A test of what? Morris asked. Stephen met Reeve's eyes. Who's paying attention? Reeve didn't waste another second. We need to check the server room now. If someone accessed airport security systems during the flicker. Morris cut her off. You can't go alone. She looked at Stephen. He didn't need her to explain. Let's go. Server room breach. Reeve and Stephen moved quickly through the restricted corridors until they reached the lower level. The hum of generators vibrated through the walls. But something was wrong. The door to the server room was slightly open. Reeve lifted her gun. "Stay behind me." Stephen stepped in front of her instead. "Not happening." She glared. "Stephen." "Reeve," he said softly, "trust me." For a moment, she hesitated. Then, she nodded. Stephen pushed the door open. The room was dim, lit only by the glow of server racks. Cold air swirled around them. And near the back, crouched beside an open panel, was a figure in a black jacket. Reeve's voice was sharp. "FBI. Step away." The figure froze. Then slowly, deliberately, raised their hands. Stephen approached carefully. The person turned their head slightly. A woman. Late 20s. Calm eyes. No fear. Reeve tightened her grip. "Who are you?" The woman spoke in a steady voice. "I'm just returning what you lost." She held up a sealed envelope, the real one. Stephen's eyes widened. "Reeve." Reeve stepped forward cautiously. "Why did you take it?" The woman shook her head. "I wasn't stealing it." "Then what were you doing?" With a chilling calmness, the woman said. "Delivering it, to the man who just walked into the airport to claim it." Reeve froze. Stephen's voice cut through the silence. "And who is that?" The woman smiled faintly. "Someone you're not ready for." The woman's calm expression, almost serene, made the tension in the server room sharper, heavier. Reeve kept her weapon raised, though her pulse thundered beneath her skin. Stephen stood beside her, silent but alert, his eyes locked on the mysterious intruder. "Who is he?" Reeve demanded. "Who came to claim this envelope?" The woman tilted her head slightly, studying Reeve as if deciding whether she was worthy of an answer. "Someone who's been ahead of you," she said softly. "Someone who was counting on you being distracted." Stephen stepped closer, voice low. "You still haven't answered the question." She glanced at him, really looked, and something shifted in her expression. Not fear. Recognition. "You," she whispered, almost to herself. "So it's true." Reeve stiffened. "What's true?" The woman straightened slowly, lowering her hands but keeping them where Reeve could see. "The man who wants this envelope," she said quietly, "has a history with him." She nodded toward Stephen. Reeve's stomach dropped. Stephen didn't blink. "Say his name." The woman's eyes locked onto his. Darius Voss. The name hit the room like a cold wind. Reeve had read the name once in an old classified report. Redacted, sealed, highly restricted. A ghost. A myth. A former military contractor who vanished years ago after being accused of orchestrating covert operations off the grid. Some called him a mastermind. Others called him a traitor. No one had seen him in nearly a decade. Yet the way Stephen's jaw tensed told Reeve everything she needed to know. "You know him," she whispered. Stephen didn't deny it. "I knew the man he used to be." Reeve lowered her gun a fraction. "Stephen, who is Darius Voss to you?" He didn't look away. "A former partner." The woman smiled faintly. "More than that. He was your brother-in-arms. Until he wasn't." Stephen said nothing. Reeve felt the truth settling into her bones. This wasn't a random threat. This wasn't about a courier or a fake envelope. This was personal. Deep. Old. She turned to the intruder. "Why bring the envelope here? Why give it to us?" "I'm not on Voss's side," the woman said. "I was working undercover inside his network. When I realized what was in this envelope, I knew he couldn't get it." Reeve narrowed her gaze. "And what is inside it?" The woman hesitated, then handed the envelope toward Reeve. "Evidence," she said. "Files documenting Voss's entire operation. Names. Transactions. Locations. Plans. Enough to finally expose him." Reeve reached for it. Stephen stopped her with a hand on her wrist. "Wait," he murmured. His eyes stayed fixed on the woman. "If this is real," he said slowly, "why tell us? Why not give it directly to the Department of Justice?" The woman's expression dimmed. "Because I can't trust anyone in the chain. Voss has people everywhere." Reeve felt a cold spike in her chest. "Including inside the government. Inside agencies. Inside security. Inside airports." Her voice softened. "Inside your own team." Reeve froze. "What do you mean my team?" The woman looked at her with a sad kind of certainty. "You've already met one." Stephen's face darkened. Who? Before she could answer, the server room lights flickered again, this time more violently. Then, boom. A blast shook the floor above them. The emergency lights snapped on, washing the room in red. Reeve grabbed her radio. Control, report. What was that explosion? Static. Then a voice, faint, panicked. Gate 19, gas line, evacuation. The signal cut. Reeve whipped toward the woman. Was that Voss? She nodded once. A distraction. He's leaving with his final courier. Reeve's heart clenched. He's still inside the airport. For now. Stephen was already moving toward the door. Then we're running out of time. Reeve caught up. Stephen, wait, we need a plan. We don't have time for a plan, he said. He knows we have the envelope. He's not leaving without trying to take it. The woman called after them. You should know something before you go. They turned. Darius Voss, she said quietly, he doesn't just want the envelope. Reeve frowned. Then what does he want? Her eyes drifted to Stephen. He wants him. Reeve's breath hitched. Why? The woman hesitated, then answered. Because Stephen is the only one who ever beat him. The hallway shook again, dust falling from the ceiling. Reeve tightened her grip on her weapon. Stephen looked calm, too calm, but his eyes told the truth. This wasn't just a mission. Not just revenge. Not just survival. It was a reckoning. Reeve stepped closer, her voice steady but emotional. We face him together. Understand? Stephen looked at her, really looked, and something unspoken passed between them. Trust. Fear. Connection. Something deeper than either expected. He nodded once. Together. The woman called out one last warning. If you're going after him, be prepared. Stephen turned. For what? The woman spoke softly, almost regretfully. For the possibility that he doesn't want to escape. Reeve frowned. Then what does he want? The woman's answer sent a chill straight through them. He wants you to come to him. Both of you. News traveled fast, faster than anyone in that small city had expected. What began as a quiet moment in a millionaire's mansion had exploded across every major social platform, every trending page, every gossip site, and every reaction channel on YouTube. Within hours, millions of people across the world had seen the clip. The humble woman returning the mysterious envelope, the arrogant millionaire laughing in her face, and then the earth-shattering moment when Steven Seagal himself walked through the door. The internet went wild. Hashtags flooded timelines. #Seagal justice, #envelope story, #humility wins, #respect people not money. People from every continent shared their own reactions, pointing out the same truth. It's always the people you underestimate who end up surprising you the most. But the story was far from over. The millionaire's world crumbles. The millionaire, whose real name was Charles Mayers, had always prided himself on one thing: power that came from wealth. He believed money made him untouchable. For years, he treated people like they existed beneath him: waiters, workers, assistants, anyone who didn't match his social rank. But that morning ruined all of it. Clips of him laughing at the woman circulated online with captions like, "This is what arrogance looks like. Never disrespect someone just because they look poor. He should be ashamed." And ashamed he was. Sponsors began cutting ties with him. Partnerships dissolved overnight. His PR team quit after failing to repair the wave of fury against him. Even the charity organizations he pretended to support publicly distanced themselves. For the first time in his life, Charles wasn't in control of the narrative. Steven Seagal was. The woman becomes a hero. Meanwhile, the woman, Sarah Bennett, had no idea the world was now calling her a hero. Her simple act of kindness had moved millions. People praised her for her honesty, her courage, and the dignity she maintained even while being mocked. Many viewers asked the same question. Why didn't she just open the envelope? But Sarah's answer in a later interview brought tears to millions. Because what isn't mine will never make me rich. Her words became a global quote, reposted, printed on posters, added to inspirational reels, even turned into motivational wallpapers. Humanity still had hope, and Sarah had unknowingly become its reminder. Steven Seagal speaks. A few days after the incident, Steven Seagal finally broke his silence. In a press statement, he spoke with the same calm authority that made him a legend. Respect is not something you buy. It's something you give. Arrogance destroys character. Humility reveals it. The world applauded him. Interviews, podcasts, news channels, everyone wanted Stephen's perspective. But he didn't make it about himself. Instead, he kept directing the spotlight back to Sarah. When asked why he stood up for her, Stephen said, "Because she was the only honorable person in that room." That line alone went viral in less than an hour. The real contents of the envelope. But the biggest question everyone kept asking was, what was inside the envelope? Millions speculated. Money, documents, evidence, secrets, property deeds. Everyone wanted to know. Stephen decided to reveal the truth in a live broadcast. He sat beside Sarah, who had been invited to join him. She looked nervous, overwhelmed, still not used to cameras and bright lights. Stephen gave her a reassuring nod before turning to the audience. Then he held up the original envelope, the very one Sarah had returned. Inside the envelope was a deed to a small training facility, a martial arts academy Stephen planned to open for underprivileged youth. He explained how he had been scouting locations quietly, trying to find a community that needed it most. The envelope contained the property documents, architectural plans, and personal notes. Then Stephen dropped the real shocker. "I am giving the academy to Sarah to run. She has the integrity, heart, and honesty required to make it something special." Sarah froze. Her hands went to her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. The entire audience sat in complete silence, watching her entire life change in seconds. I don't know what to say," she whispered. Stephen smiled gently. "Just say yes." She nodded, still crying. The comment sections exploded with joy. "She deserves this." Steven Seagal is a legend on and off the screen. This is what real heroes look like. The Millionaire's final moment. After the broadcast, reporters swarmed Charles Mayers for a statement, hoping he'd apologize, explain, or show remorse. But Charles refused every interview. He stayed hidden in his mansion, blinds drawn, embarrassed to face the world. The last thing anyone heard from him was a short written statement. "I was wrong." For someone who had built his persona on ego, those 3 words were the biggest surrender of his life. A new beginning. 6 months later, Sarah's training academy became a thriving center of community life. Kids from all backgrounds trained there, rich, poor, shy, troubled, talented, hopeful. Stephen visited often, teaching lessons, guiding the students, and reminding them all. Strength means nothing without character. Sarah became a local icon, beloved by everyone who walked through the academy doors. She ran the school with kindness, discipline, and the same honesty that had changed her life. And the envelope? It was framed on the wall above the entrance. A reminder that one small act of integrity can rewrite an entire destiny. If you believe humility is more powerful than wealth, and no one should ever judge someone by their appearance, white right pointing backhand index, type respect in the comments. White right pointing backhand index, subscribe for more inspiring stories like this one.